everybody, how's it going? This is Eden Mabon of LightCycleAstrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends, and welcome if you are a new subscriber. Thanks so much, everybody who has been subscribing lately. The channel's been growing a little bit, and that's really exciting. Also, thank you to everybody who has been congratulating me on my new baby. Baby Amelia is doing really, really good, and she is so precious and sweet. She has this adorable, sweet, soft, gentle cry, and she's learning how to latch with mother, and we have been trying to get some sleep in between feedings. You guys probably know how that goes, but anyway, thanks so much for everybody who has been sending me these lovely messages. I really appreciate that. Okay, so today we are going to get into some horoscopes for all 12 rising signs, and we're going to take a look at Mars's recent move into the sign of Cancer that happened last Saturday, March the 25th. So we're all getting used to this new energy of Mars in Cancer. It's a really noticeable energy. I know I've been getting messages and having people sort of comment, "Wow, this energy is really something. It's palpable. You can notice it." And I think that's because, and we did a video on Monday on just the general kind of characteristics of Mars and Cancer. So if you missed that, you can check that out. But this energy, it's such an interesting dynamic, because if you think about it at its base level, or from like an archetypal standpoint, you have Mars, who is associated with the warrior archetype, right? He is the planet that is not afraid to go to war, to slash people apart, to defend, to cause conflict, to be independent, and he is now finding himself trying to express his nature while visiting the moon's temple or domicile. So how interesting is that? We have this very potent warrior kind of energy that is trying to be himself in the moon's temple, a temple that is, of course, associated with the mother, an archetype that is nurturing, emotional, warm, caring, sentimental, wants family around her, wants to gather things in and hold them close. So I think that is a really interesting combination. So it's pretty noticeable. Now, in ancient astrology, Mars, of course, was said to be in a pretty bad place in the sign of Cancer, because just for those reasons, that those two archetypal qualities or characteristics don't seem to blend together. Mars wants to kill. Well, Mars was said to be exalted in the sign of Capricorn because Capricorn is during the winter time. And what happens in the winter time? But things die. So when you're going to find a place that Mars could be lifted up and celebrated, where does Mars become very important? It makes sense that Mars would be really important in the winter when, if you look around, everything is sort of going through a death, right? The leaves are falling off the tree. You can't grow crops. Animals aren't having babies. It's just a hard time if you're in a cold climate. So the ancient astrologers noticed, wow, well, Mars seems to really fit at this time of the year. But Mars does not seem to fit so well during the summer, the peak of summer, when things are blooming and they're blossoming and there's all of this new life that is getting its foothold. There's all this warmth and heat. That's not really a great place for Mars. So from the ancient Hellenistic tradition, which is primarily the kind of astrology that I use on this channel, because that's where I have my formal training in, is coming from the standpoint of some of these traditional essential dignities, as they are called, where, you take a look at things like this. You take a look at the characteristics where a god of death and war doesn't fit so well with the mother archetype. That sign that is connected to the mother, Cancer, and the moon. It is not all bad, though. That's one thing that we do have to point out, especially if you are somebody that has that natally in your birth chart. I don't want to say that you have this terrible placement, Mars is in this bad sign, and so everything's going to turn out bad. There are some good things with Mars in the sign of Cancer. For instance, that mother bear warrior archetype. You get those stories of like a woman lifting up a car if her child is trapped underneath, like in an auto accident. A woman who, puts herself in front of danger, to sacrifice herself. She knows she might die, but to protect her children or her family. Of course, things like that. Of course, the warrior, the soldier that goes off to battle in order to stop an invasion, in order to stop people from killing his family or his kin. Things like that. Mars is associated with sacrifice. Even the word martyr is having that word Mars in there, somebody that is a martyr that has died for a cause. So traditionally, Mars in ancient astrology was said to be one of the two malefic planets, meaning one of the two planets that just had a general signification for bad fortune. Things that could befall you that maybe are through no fault of your own. We are living in a world where there is a mix of good and bad things that come and go. Sometimes we get injured, and of course, we don't want that. Well, that's Mars, something that happens to you that's like an injury. Sometimes also get really motivated to, start a new project that is really, really empowering and helps a lot of your situation out or the situation in your family. Well, that's also Mars. So it's not all bad. But anyway, that is a little bit of the archetypal themes, a very interesting combination of characteristics being blended together now that Mars is traveling through the sign of Cancer. And we're going to take a look at that archetypal pairing and place that into whichever house Cancer is occupying in your birth chart. So how do we do that? Well, let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock now. If you're new to the channel or you're new to ancient Western traditional Hellenistic astrology, we'll just make sure everybody's on the same page with this, since this is primarily the kind of astrology that I practice on the channel. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the annotation here, and we can see there is, let me get my circle tool here. There's Mars now in the sign of Cancer. And Mars had ingressed into Cancer on March 25th, last Saturday. But look, we've got all these planets in the sign of Aries. And what we're looking at today is which sign is occupying which house based on your rising sign. So how do we do that? Now, you might be using a different house system than whole sign houses, but it looks like for all intents and purposes, ancient astrologers were primarily using whole sign houses. And, there is, of course, examples of them using different house systems. Usually those were for specific kinds of timing techniques, like something like the length of life when they wanted to figure out how long somebody was going to live, or things like that. But primarily it looks like ancient astrologers were using whole sign houses. So if you're new to this house system, I won't lie, it can be incredibly disorienting to see the houses change around like this. But just to help get bearings and a visual on this, let's say that if you were born with this chart right here, and you had the rising at 13 degrees of Aries. So, for example, that would mean that as you were being born, if somebody went outside and looked at the sky, half of Aries would be above the eastern horizon, and half of Aries would be below the eastern horizon. But as minutes clocked by, right, more of the sign of Aries is rising. To ancient astrologers, what they did was this. It did not matter whether it was only like half a degree of Aries rising at the time of your birth, or if 29.5 degrees of Aries had risen at the time of your birth, and it was about to change into Taurus rising. It did not matter where the rising was. They basically said that entire sign is going to be your first house. And so the house system is divided up like that. Each sign is essentially the next house. So if Aries is your rising sign, that's the first house. And then the beginning of Taurus is the beginning of the second house. So each house is basically comprised of 30 even degrees, because each sign has 30 even degrees. And that's the kind of house system that I use. Now, I don't want to throw you off and say that like this is better than another house system, because if you're used to using like Placidus or something like that, think of it like a different tool. Astrology is a system of divination, and depending on which divinatory tool you use or pull out of your toolbox, you might get a different way of looking through the divine message that is trying to come through the chart. So it isn't that one house system is better than another or anything like that. It's just that this is the one that I formally been trained in, I could say. So this is the one that I use. But you can, of course, use any house system you want. But I just wanted to give you some orientation if this is a new house system to you, and explain a little bit about how they are forming the houses in ancient Western astrology. Okay, now before we jump into today's content, though, please like, share, and subscribe on the channel if you haven't already and you like the content. I've been really trying to grow the channel in the last year or so, and it's been really encouraging to see the channel grow, especially over the last week. So thank you again if you're a new subscriber. But we're trying to grow the channel and one day become monetized and help the channel sustain itself with all the work that it takes. I do appreciate that. Also, with the new baby, it is a good time to hit that notification bell so that if my schedule changes, you don't have to wonder when a new video is coming. It'll just notify you. And I still plan on trying to keep that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday content schedule. But, life is a bit in flux right now for me with baby and with the other work that I do and family and all of that. So as I try to get my feet back underneath myself, it's a good time to just hit that notification bell. And that way, if I upload on Tuesday or Friday or miss a day or gain a day or something like that, you don't have to worry about it. All right. Thanks so much for that. Also, if you're ever interested in a reading by me, you can go to my website, lightcycleastrology.com. and send me a message or a question or comment, anything you want to do, any kind of personal or private message you want to send to me. That's a good place to do it. Or if you want to sign up for a reading, that's also a place where you can do that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead now and talk about horoscopes for all 12 rising signs. And of course, we will start with Aries. So if you are an Aries rising, you're already queued up here on the ascendant. So if you're an Aries rising, you got a big stellium of planets now in your first house, the house that was related to the body, the self, the character that you play on the stage of life. Your physical health and vitality was also a house that was associated with the soul or the spirit that inhabits your body. So you got this big stellium of the sun, an exalted sun right now, benefic Jupiter and Mercury making a conjunction with Jupiter. That's all happening in your first house. So there are big things happening around the physical self if you are an Aries rising right now. There is also Mars, which we're primarily taking a look at today, is now beginning to travel through the fourth house, that house that was connected with the bottom of the chart. So there is this archetypal theme of Mars blended with the moon taking place either in the home or family. Sometimes it's not about the home or family. It is just sometimes about the foundation of support. It's kind of like the ground that you walk on. So sometimes it can be about the historical way in which you have built confidence for yourself or something like that, right? Just think of the kind of foundation that you're used to having, that real familiar territory, especially for Aries risings, always having Cancer occupy that space below the bottom of the chart. That Cancer kind of archetype is really the space that is dealing with what is familiar, what is nurturing, what is home. That is really important for your sense of support and foundational things that sort of help you understand what to expect. And of course, that can also relate to the home or the family. So with Mars in this space, there are a few potential things that could happen for Aries risings. Of course, you could have some kind of frustration. Mars is a planet that is associated with things that are frustrating. Like when you're trying to do something and it just doesn't work, or, there's just some frustration built up around trying to get something done. Irritation, conflict, strife, sometimes injury, Of course, fighting. So one thing that on, I guess, the more negative side of Mars and Cancer in the fourth house for Aries risings could be just general conflict in the home, something frustrating at home with the family. Maybe, having a conflict with your mother, or just feeling like it's hard to get things going or done at, chores over the weekend, things like this. Maybe it's just like you want to lie around and you don't feel like doing something. These are all a little bit of the archetypal energies. But it could be that there is more of a positive side that says, what can I sacrifice right now? Is there something I can do? Is there something I can start? Can I use all of this energy that is really coming through in the first house right now? Can I use that to get something going in the home? Can I fix that thing that has really been needing to be fixed? Can I, like for me, would it be like, can I help my partner take care of a newborn baby so that she can sleep, which means like me taking on like pretty much everything. Can I do all the dishes, cook all the meals, take out the garbage, take care of older brother, grocery shopping, just everything, right? I'm just trying to allow her to sleep. So there could be I guess on the positive side of Mars and Cancer in the fourth, it could be that right now there's this real ability to like sacrifice something for the home or the family, do the hard work, be that good soldier, protect the home and the family, protect what you love, what is familiar to you. These are all basic themes. Now, you have to, of course, include in all of these planets in your first house. So I could see there definitely being maybe some conflict between what you want to do, or the energy that is really emerging within your body right now, this exalted sun energy that is really lighting you up as a person. And then maybe there are some demands at home or with the family that seem to be frustrating for you to have to deal with those as well. So there's a little bit of give and take, I think, right now with some of the tension here between family and yourself. You also have, of course, Saturn now in the 12th house, and Saturn has been forming a trine to Mars. So I think that this has really been helping mitigate some of the normal frustrations that we get when we have Mars in the sign of Cancer, where Saturn might say, hey, take a more mature outlook on the work that you have to do, and let's just go about this very practically. It's okay to sacrifice and maybe restrict ourselves for the good of the many. A very Saturn in Pisces kind of archetype that is forming a trine to Mars. So those are some of the things that I see if you are in Aries rising. So go ahead and leave any comments in the comment section. Maybe there is something that sounds like it's resonating for you with that particular delineation. Or if not, go ahead and tell me that too. So let's go ahead and move the clock forward now here to the next rising sign. We'll put Taurus on the ascendant. If you're a Taurus rising, this now is moving Mars into your third house. So ever since Saturday, we've had Mars enter your third house, a house that was associated with the everyday environment, sort of comings and goings around your home, which is, why you have keywords for the third house like neighbors, right? The reason for this is because you see how close the third house is to the fourth house of home. So this part of the chart that is very, very near the home and family, the third house was said in ancient astrology to be where the moon rejoiced in, or was in her joy. So this third house is very, very connected to the fluctuation of both day-to-day moods, day-to-day mental activity, but also sort of the day-to-day just comings and goings, the routines of the day. It's sort of it's like if you were a fish, it's sort of the reef, the environment, the water that you're swimming in. So the third house is sometimes hard to get a grasp on what that is relating to, but it can relate to things like culture, like cultural, environmental characteristics that you are raised in. What was the culture like in the country or hometown or school or location that you were raised in as a child? These are all very third housey kinds of things. So Mars moving into this space, there may be a combination of like frustration with day-to-day things that are happening, day-to-day moods. Maybe there's just a little bit of an irritation or grumpiness, just around maybe a little bit of a lack of energy with the day-to-day things that you have to do. But also it could be, it could be that there's conflict maybe with people that you see all the time. It could even be just somebody like that cuts you off in traffic, that all of a sudden you're just like, hey, this is my lane. Like, get the hell out of my lane. You bleeping bleep. This could be a time where that Mars warrior energy could just, outlash somewhere in the day-to-day environment. But it also could be saying, I defend my culture. I defend my homeland. I defend my neighborhood and my family. I'm going to stand up and be the sentinel on the gates that defends all of the cultural things that I identify with myself. There could be that there as well, too. Of course, there could be conflict with family members. The moon was associated with siblings here. And so these are some of the significations. I tend to think that this may be a little bit of a more shadowy or difficult significations for Mars in the third, because you notice that this stellium in the 12th house seems to be working with things from the shadows. You do have an exalted sun, a sun in a very, very good condition here. You have Jupiter, which is a benefic, and you have Mercury and Jupiter coming together in a conjunction. So could there be sudden outbursts? Could you be trying to talk to your brother or sister or mom and just like blurt out something that seems overly harsh and sort of rash? Could there be something that is spoken or said that seems to sort of foster some kind of conflict or stress within the family or home or with people that you work with or see every day? There could be a little bit of that brashness that you see with Aries coming through the secretive house of the 12th house. Also, you've got Venus and Uranus coming through a conjunction in the first house. So I think that even if that happens, one good thing about the astrology this week for Taurus risings is you have Venus in your first house making that conjunction to Uranus. So Venus in the first, especially in good dignity, like she is in the sign of Taurus, her own domicile, is going to speak to, feeling probably, like you have some hand on the steering wheel of personal grace, personal beauty and aesthetic, maybe ways in which you could be yourself in a very harmonious, pleasant way that could maybe smooth over anything that comes up in terms of this Mars energy in the third. So that is a positive thing. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing for Taurus risings. If anything lands that I have been talking about, let me know in the comments, or if it doesn't and you're seeing it a different way, I'd love to know that too. All right, let's go ahead now and move the clock forward and put Gemini on the ascendant. So if you have the rising degree anywhere in the sign of Gemini, this is going to make Gemini your entire first house here. And that is going to pull Mars now into the second house. Cancer occupies your entire second house that was associated with money, personal resources, things that you invest in, like even if it was like a garden that you started that is eventually going to provide food for you. Things that you do that invest in yourself that eventually come to you later in the future. That's the second house. With Mars here, a planet that is associated with, I guess it could be like lusty, almost like, I guess, like desire. But, even look at the symbol of Mars. It has that male phallic kind of symbolism to it. It makes me wonder if there isn't this real interesting kind of motivational energy that is coming through. Maybe there is something speaking to wanting to have independent sources of money that you can provide to your family right now. How do you make your own money? Maybe there's something happening at work where it's just like, you got Saturn in the 10th. Maybe Saturn in the 10th is beginning to limit some situation at work or working for other people. And maybe Mars moves in and says, wow, how can I make my own money right now, that I can provide to the family? Or it could be something in the way of, how do I save my money. Maybe I've been spending too much money on certain people or family members or on the home. Maybe this is a time where I need to cut off spending or try to go about something like keep my money to myself, keep it for myself, rather save it. Or maybe it's something that you buy that is just there's something that you really want now, and you say, I've always wanted this. This is really going to help me out in the future if I have this thing, this possession, maybe a new car. I really need a new car, something like that. And maybe it's a lot of money, and you say, you know what? I'm just going to spend the money on myself and do this. There could be something like that, especially with Venus making a conjunction with Uranus in the 12th house, where the 12th house sometimes expresses itself as our like shadow side, where we don't always totally understand our motivations. And sometimes we can act out, we all have a side to us that we just don't see. So sometimes, we deal with like surprises where it's like, oh, I didn't even notice that I did that. And somebody says, hey, do you know you did this? And you're like, no, I didn't even notice that, right? That's kind of like the 12th house, especially with Venus here, maybe wanting some pleasure, some self indulgence or gratitude for yourself that is somehow maybe a little bit in the shadows or not working in the most operable way. Like it's not something that you totally understand. Maybe it's just more desire that's coming out that you don't really have a full grasp on. And so maybe there's like some purchases that aren't so awesome for you to make. So you might want to be a little bit careful about just what you invest in, what you do financially. It might just require a little bit more scrutiny. And you get the sense that, Mars is a planet that connects to things that are very sometimes just shoot first, ask questions later, kind of an energy, or spend money first and think about it later. That rash impulsiveness that Mars has sometimes. That's one downside to Mars in Cancer, especially Mars running through the sign traditionally that was said to be the sign of its fall or depression. Money situations could be a source of tension right now. But the good news, though, is that you have this stellium of planets in the 11th house. The sun in exaltation, a benefic, and Mercury here. So there's it seems like there's a really positive, potent form of support coming from allies or benefactors. There are people in your life right now that are just how very supportive. They're really helping out whatever you need help on right now. I get the feeling from that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and move the clock forward here, and we'll put Cancer on the rising. So, of course, whenever we are talking about horoscopes and the planet in question that we're taking a look at falls in your first whole sign house, the first whole sign house, or the first house in ancient astrology, is fundamentally about you and you alone. Whereas all the other houses are just extensions of things that you go through as a soul, incarnate in material form, walking the earth, right? You have the things that you need, like food, the second house. You have the people that are related to you, the third house. You have where you live, the fourth house. All of the other houses are dealing with different areas or facets of your life that you're engaged in. But the first house in ancient astrology is fundamentally connected with you. It's not so much the ego like it is in modern astrology, just insofar as that's a kind of thing that it is associated with. Rather, it is associated with your physical body, the soul that inhabits your physical body, that was said to be breathed in the first moment that you took your first breath. Very, very fascinating. And, it's connected to the character that you feel like you should play. If life were a stage and the cosmos cast you to play a certain kind of character, are you a villain? Are you a good guy? Are you a philanthropist? Are you a fisherman? Like, what kind of character are you? How do you dress yourself? What personal standards do you hold for yourself with other people or with yourself? When I meet other people, do I play this character or am I that character? That's really the quintessential expression of the first house. It's just all about you, the body, the psychology, the mind, the soul, the spirit, the vitality, which is why it's connected to things like health and sickness. So you have to wonder, with Mars running through the first house, first we have to get the bad stuff out of the way. Of course, Mars, a planet that is associated with disease, cutting or accidents, injury. When Mars is in your first house and Mars is in this traditionally debilitated way, you want to be, of course, very, very careful that you don't cut yourself in the kitchen with knives, that you don't drive too fast and have a car accident. Not to alarm you, but this is what we use astrology for. We want to see, when are there times that are advantageous for us? And then, if you're listening to this and you've got Mars in the first, like I remember, I forget what it was, but I had something last Christmas, and I was up on a ladder putting up Christmas lights 2 stories tall. And I remember I had a flash of like something that was transiting my chart. And I just said to myself, I said, Eden, get off this ladder now. This is exactly the kind of situation that you should not put yourself in right now, because this could be how this transit expresses itself through your birth chart, right? And how are you going to know? You won't know. So I just told myself, I was like, this is the wrong time. Just get off the ladder. Do this later, do this in a week or whatever it was. So that's why we use astrology in the first place, right? It's to help us out in whatever way we can. So I don't say Mars in the first, debilitated, negative to scare you or alarm you. But if I can say, hey, this is a time to be very careful, maybe to just take a second moment to make sure that you're doing everything safe and carefully, then that's good. I've done my job, I think. So be careful of injuries and accidents, of course, when you have Mars and Cancer in the first. The good thing that could come about with Mars in the first, of course, is maybe there is this real way in which you could be a person for change. You could bring about personal change that is really inspiring to those around you. Do you do things for other people? Are you the character that's like, I can protect what I love, what is familiar to me, what gives me nurturance and support? That's who I am right now. I'm all about being the guy that says, hey, take care of your family. And I inspire other people to do that. So there's this interesting combination where Mars is the protector of home, protector of family, saves the children from the car accident or from the bear in the woods or from, a villain or an attack on the family or the home. This is Mars right now. So Mars can be very inspiring in the first. You can be a character for good in the world right now. As an example of the ways in which we do need to stand up for what we love, what is home, what is family, what is the most important and precious thing that is oftentimes vulnerable. That's a really good thing with Mars and Cancer in the first. And there is also Venus making that conjunction to Uranus in the 11th. So again, it looks like, just like for Gemini risings, there's some beneficial things happening in the house that was associated with allies, with good spirit, people that want you to do well, that are going to be there to help you, that lend support, that give you maybe resources you need or something like that. Venus as a general signifier for good fortune, being in its own temple in Taurus, running through a very, very good house. Something comes along in like a surprising way, some form of support or help from somebody or a community comes along in a surprising way that is like, wow, who could be there in your life right now that could all of a sudden provide some resource or benefit or help or some form of support that is just like out of the blue and is just amazing and is really going to help you out in some way. That's kind of the delineation you get with Venus in its own temple running through the 11th for Cancer risings right now. Also, you've got all these stellium planets in the 10th, an exalted sun. Is there a moment where there's success now coming to you right now, authority or some kind of good judgment or rulership coming from people above you that have authority? there could be real big activity in the career or in things that you're trying to achieve out there in the world. It looks like something successful is culminating right now. One shadow side of Mars in Cancer in the first could be, if you're feeling like things are really going well for you and you're gaining some success, be careful not to, be too Marsy. Just Mars in general in the first house sometimes can be a little bit of an aggressive personality, right? You just want to tone that down a little bit. And maybe you will, because Mars is running through a water sign. And sometimes Mars can lose his edge in that soft temple. But I would say that is sort of the cautionary tale, is be careful of getting injured. Be careful of letting success go to your head and being somebody that could be too brash and suffer like some kind of personal fall. We use the language of Mars in the sign of its fall in Cancer. So be careful of injury and be careful that you don't have some personal fall. Okay, so let's go ahead now and put Leo on the ascendant. This is a very interesting rising alignment right now. We have all the stellium planets in your 9th house. We have Venus in its own temple in the 10th. And this is going to put Mars in Cancer in the 12th house. This really, really makes me wonder. I feel like it's like the chart is saying there's something very philosophical that is coming through. There's something that is really, really, really dealing with learning a new kind of life principle, or of course, it could be like very practical and mundane, like maybe there's success if you're like in a degree program right now. Maybe this is a moment where you're sort of beginning a degree or finishing up a degree that is successful and is really a big part of your life right now. But I also could see, if it's not something very mundane like that, where it's very concrete, like 9th house as associated with the place of like higher education or the law. If it's not something very concrete, if it's more just like something that's happening internally or emotionally, makes me wonder if there isn't like a moment of revelation towards like some higher understanding of all of these planets in the 9th house connecting to God. The 9th house was associated with God in the ancient world. And when you have the sun, a planet that is said to have its joy in the 9th house, it's like divination and higher forms of knowledge that just drop on your head from God himself. Just drops, these big downloads of revelation in your lap or into your brain. I really get the sense that there's something very moving on a spiritual, religious, or higher philosophical kind of ocean that is really seeping in right now. This connection to Cancer and Mars in the 12th, though, makes me wonder if there isn't some form of maliciousness that is somehow in your life. It's like there's this potential for like hidden enemies, hidden things that are destructive or cause conflict, that is either, in your blind spot, that maybe there's certain habits or mental attitudes, belief systems that you're holding on to, maybe from the past, that are somehow or another causing conflict. And maybe what's happening right now is there is this amazing download from the 9th that is saying, hey, you don't have to hold on to those and subscribe to those beliefs or do things in that same way, or hold on to the same old techniques. You can do something new. You can understand things in this way. You can believe these things. I really get a sense of something like that from like the philosophical standpoint. And maybe Mars in Cancer says, okay, well, let's cut some of those old beliefs out. This is a time where, even though it's hard or it's difficult, let's get rid of some of those things. But I suppose you do have to watch out for overbearing, like motherly kinds of people, that potentially don't have your best interest at heart. And I know that sounds really harsh, but even sometimes, even a person like your own mother, sometimes, Of course, they love you and they want the best for you, but what happens if they're going through something and they do things in a way that isn't the best for you? Not because, they mean to, but just because we're all human and we don't always treat each other the best. So maybe there's something happening with the home, or with a motherly kind of figure, or with women in general. Right now, it could be friends, or doesn't have to be somebody that's a woman, but you get the sense that motherly bear archetype. How do you turn that archetype into something that isn't good for you? Think about that. So sometimes that can happen even with people that love us. They don't always treat us the best. So maybe this is a time where you have to deal with a little bit of conflict at home or in the family, or maybe you're the source of conflict within the home or the family. But either way, there's a little bit of that signature coming through. Also, this is a kind of Mars where you don't want to become the martyr. You don't want to say, I do everything. I sacrifice for the family. It's me, me, me. I do everything. You guys don't help out at all. Because that's the kind of martyr energy you sometimes get with Mars and Cancer. So that's something to watch out for too. So just like all of the rising signs, we've got some good, we've got some bad that we're working with when it comes to some of these planetary movements right now. And always. Okay, let's go ahead and drop Virgo on the ascendant now. Now, this is going to move Cancer into the 11th house, and the stellium is now in the 8th, and we have the Venus-Uranus conjunction in the 9th, and Saturn has just ingressed into the 7th house. So a lot of activity on the top half of the chart. Having all these planets in the top half, there's a lot of spiritual things happening, I could say, just generally speaking, with this many planets. You've got Mars in the place of friends and like work associates, or it's said to be a place that is a good house that wants good things for you, that provides support from communities or allies or friends, benefactors that help you reach eventual success and achievement. With Mars and Cancer here, I know some ancient astrologers said that there were no such things as a bad planet in the 11th house, that the 11th house was so good that even, planets that were being maltreated or were in bad condition or whatever, planets that represented quote unquote bad things like Mars in its fall in Cancer were even turned into agents of good in the 11th house. So that's one thing that's really interesting. So it makes me wonder, is there a very protective mother bear warrior kind of energy that is coming in to help you right now? I think that is maybe something that could be seen with Mars and Cancer in the 11th. Although there is the stellium in the 8th house, which adds a very interesting dimension, an exalted sun in the 8th, a benefic Jupiter conjoining with Mercury, the god of money. This makes me wonder about the topics of bills and debt, loans, taxes, child support. This house was associated with that realm of finances, the entanglements that we get when we get a loan, or when we're waiting for child support, or when we're trying to win a legal case and we're going to get some money from it. That whole realm of finances out there in the world that we're entangled with. That realm that also entangles us to people just in ways that they depend on us and ways that we depend on them. Having an exalted sun and Jupiter as a benefic does make me wonder if something good or fortunate is happening in that realm. Are you able to overcome and be victorious over debts, winning lawsuits or litigations, getting money that is owed to you, or being able to get rid of debt or loans? Maybe you've been trying to get a loan to build a house or something like that. Maybe this is a time where finances comes through from you, from a partner or from a bank or something like that. Maybe this is a time where you get like a promotion and now all of a sudden you're handling accounts. And so you're like managing all this money and you're moving it around at work or something like that. Maybe something with your partner is happening and his finances lead to an increase in the partner's collective wealth or something like that. So it kind of makes me wonder what kind of allies are maybe even fallen allies, but allies that want to nurture and protect you nonetheless, that would take a bullet to save your life, that are sort of motherly, but also this strong warrior woman kind of energy. What kind of maybe female allies that are really strong and independent are there to help you out right now? What kind of finances are you dealing with from potentially other people? Those are sort of the topics that you get. Now, Saturn moving into the seventh house is interesting because it makes me wonder what's happening in the realm of marriage or relationships that is causing some of the change that is happening with things like the ninth house and the 11th house. Is the finances of the partnership or marriage changing, but maybe changing in your favor? So I sort of wonder about some of these things, but that's the general realm that we get for Virgo rising right now. Okay, let's go ahead and put Libra on the ascendant. So if you are a Libra rising, now we've got Mars and Cancer in the 10th, and we have all these planets in the seventh house. So that is where most of the energy is coming through from the planets right now, where most of the planets are speaking from. The house of partnerships and marriage, of things coming to completion. And also the 10th house, a place that was associated with culmination and success, things coming to some kind of fruition or culmination. This makes me wonder about what's happening in love and relationship. And specifically, if you're in a relationship, what kinds of things are happening with your partner? Because you've got Venus in Taurus in the 8th. It almost makes me think like something good is potentially happening to a partner that you're with that gives some kind of good fortune with their financial situation that maybe helps out the relationship in some way, or brings assets to you in a way that weren't there before. And maybe, you know, with Uranus there, it's like all of a sudden it's like something new and out of the blue and exciting. And maybe Mars in Cancer, it makes me wonder if there isn't some general signification that says, I can take a step back from what I'm doing out in the world because my partner is doing so good and there's now money here that wasn't there before. So maybe I can like step away from being out in the world and take a little bit more time for the family, for the home, you know? I wonder about that. This could be a time where an opponent could be victorious and there is a potential fall from in reputation out there in the world for you. So that is a pretty negative delineation. But I suppose, you know, with millions and millions and millions of hundreds of millions, really, hundreds of millions of Libra risings out there in the world, you know, the population is 8 billion right now. Assuming that you divide 8 billion by 12 rising signs, what is that? Actually, let me see if I have that real quick. 960 million. So let's say that there are 960 million Libra risings in the world. Well, that's a lot of different things that could be happening for Libra risings. So I think in the worst case scenario, this could be like a fall from reputation because an opponent or competitor may get the best of you. But then again, you go back to like the marriage and relationship. Is there something really fortuitous happening with that provides money that just is about you taking a step back from work? So somewhere in there is where I get things for Libra risings. So I'm having trouble coming up with something in the middle there. But if you're a Libra rising, go ahead and tell me your rising sign and if there's any examples that you see this showing up. I'd love to know them. Okay, let's go ahead and put Scorpio on the ascendant here. This is going to drop the stellium of planets into the 6th house here in Aries, and we now have Mars coming into the 9th house in Cancer. Mars in the 9th house of Cancer, I think, deals with a couple of things. It either could be going through a time where maybe there needs to be some religious, spiritual, philosophical beliefs that are maybe being cut away right now. And it could be really hard because the ninth house tends to give us it tends to provide the context of the meaning of our life. So it's like, I understand myself because I fit into this existential context. This is who I am in the cosmos. This is who I am in the world. This is who I am at home. This is who I am in my body. But it sort of provides that context of meaning for our lives. It tends to provide our guiding principles that we live our lives by. And we tend to go through periods where we build these philosophical understandings for our life. We sort of build them up. We hang on to them. We kind of go through many, many years just holding on to, this is how I understand the context of my higher understanding of my place in the world, or my belief systems, or things like that. When Mars enters its fall, it does make me wonder if for some reason or another, there are changes in belief. There are a period that we go through where certain beliefs fall away. And maybe those are good. Maybe though familiar, though we want to hang on to them, they're like family to us. If we can get rid of them, maybe our lives improve if we don't hang on to certain kinds of structures of belief systems. So I wonder about that. Now, of course, you've got a lot of planets in the sixth house. Does make me think that there is something new that has come into your life right now that requires a lot of energy, a lot of work. I think it's a good thing, but it is indentured service nonetheless. It's like, like for me, I'm a Scorpio rising. So of course I've had a new baby. So new babies are of course a lot of work. So, but it's a good thing. Like I'm working my tail off, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's a blessing. So it makes me wonder if there isn't some good blessing of work that you're just really working hard on right now. You got Venus in Uranus in the seventh. There's something good happening with your partner or relationship right now. And somehow or another, there is this thing with beliefs or higher understandings. Just makes me think that there's a revolution or a transformation, maybe even a quick, just 2-month transformation that has you understanding your place in the world differently by the time Mars moves out of Cancer and into your 10th. So that's what I'm seeing for Scorpio risings. Okay, now let's go ahead to Sag rising. And so if you have your ascendant degree rising in anywhere in the sign of Sagittarius, your whole sign first house is Sag. And this is going to move Mars into the 8th house. And we're also having the stellium of planets in your 5th house in Aries. Got Venus and Uranus in your 6th. So what do we see if you're Sag rising? It does look like, well, Saturn in your 4th as well. It makes me wonder what is being limited or restricted. What's being constricted at home or in the family or on properties. There's something sort of being limited there, while at the same time, there's something really creative happening. Maybe there's a new child that has been born in the family, or maybe, we're, as the springtime is coming in, we're playing with children and we're getting involved with sports with our children or something like this. Maybe we're engaging in like a new creative project. Maybe there is a lot of energy happening around things that we do for recreation or entertainment or for our own personal joy. The 5th house has this connection with just good fortune. So having an exalted sun, it's like triumphing, watching your child triumph at a game, and just having the joy of that, spending time with children as having like a lot of joy, or putting a lot of energy into something that you're creating right now, a creative project that you're working on. And having Mars move into Cancer in the 8th, well, what is that about? Rather than try to bring everything together and say, okay, the thing with the 8th house is connected to the thing with the 5th house and the 4th house. Instead of having one grand, big delineation, I get the sense that it's more like this. It's like there are some really good things that are happening with children or with fun and recreation or sports or hobbies or creative projects. There's maybe something happening at the home that somehow is being diminished or taking a step back or being limited somehow. And then there's something happening with the resources of partner or the resources of people that you depend on, like if it was alimony or child support or something like that that isn't coming through right now. Or maybe you've been trying to get a loan to do something at home, and maybe Mars is representing that the bank turns you down. There's a limitation in the fourth. You get the sense that there's something happening within the realm of the things that we depend on from other people, banks, taxes. This could be a time where you just simply get pulled over and have to pay a hefty speeding ticket or something like that, and maybe that money doesn't trickle down to the family now if it is connected. But you do get the sense that there is something happening within the resources of other people, or bills, taxes, debts, loans, maybe the esteem of other people. Maybe you're counting on somebody to put in a letter of recommendation for a job, and that person just isn't doing it. It could be anything like that is sort of coming in that is a little bit more difficult or challenging right now. While simultaneously, there's just something really, really joyful happening at the same time, maybe around things happening at home or with family or children or recreation, or just having more time on the golf course or whatever it is. So that's what I'm getting for Sag risings. Okay, let's go ahead and put Capricorn on the ascendant now. And this is going to move the stellium of planets in Aries into the fourth house, and Mars has now entered your seventh house. So this is sort of the opposite of the Cancer rising, where you have to be careful of accidents and injury for your personal body. This is more like, we hope that partner or marriage partner or husband or wife is also taking care for themselves not to get injured or into an accident. With this big stellium of planets in the fourth, what's happening at the home or the family that is somehow good, has this springtime kind of new beginning energy to it. There's really like just a huge burst of energy with something at home. Maybe it's building a house, getting the plans or the permits back from the permit department, and now you get to build on your property, or there's a new birth, or there's something really powerful and energetic happening in the home or with the family, maybe with the father. But somehow or another, the relationship becomes more independent. Maybe your partner is somehow at work, working longer hours and isn't home as much. Or maybe there's a stress or tension around the relationship itself. Maybe partner is feeling like he really needs to defend something right now. He has to switch gears and become the sentient guardian on the gates of the perimeter of the family or the home, or what he feels like needs protecting. And so it's just partner is becoming this Marsy, warrior kind of mother bear energy. So it doesn't necessarily have to be bad things in relationship. Maybe it's just describing what's happening with our partners right now, with our marriage partners or husbands and wives. And it could be even, like a best friend or business partner, but something about people that are intimately involved with our lives. They have this mother bear quality about them right now, and they could be defensive or trying to protect something. Also, this could be a time where, if you are a Capricorn rising and you've been in a competition, or like going back to like the lawsuit example, like let's say you're in a lawsuit, this could be a time where the other party loses, and maybe you're the winning party in like a lawsuit or in like a divorce case. This could be where, if you're going through a divorce, you get the home, you get the assets or custody of the children, and they, lose the battle. So that's one thing you could see for Capricorn risings right now. Okay, now let's go ahead and put Aquarius on the ascendant. This is going to drop Mars into the 6th house of work. Now, Mars was said in ancient astrology to be in its joy or rejoicing in the 6th house. That's because Mars likes to cause strife and conflict, likes to cause accidents. It's like he delights in causing misfortune or struggle, strife, conflict, war, accidents, injuries. So, with all of these Aries planets down here in the 3rd, what potent and powerful new energy is coming in for the environment, the everyday things that are coming and going, your coming and goings, your daily rituals and habits, the mental space that you've sort of been in, the moods that you've been having, maybe time with family, neighbors, brothers, sisters, sort of that everyday mundane life is getting this injection of powerful, vital springtime energy. There's something good or positive forming in that space. And now Pluto has moved into your 1st house and begins the transformation of over the next 20 years of slowly remaking your identity or your character or your health or something like that. Could there be like trying to recover from a sickness or illness? Like this is a time where you maybe see that Mars says, you know what, we have really have to protect our bodies, our health. But it also could be that that is very hard to do because Mars is kind of watered down in Cancer. So it's maybe frustrating. So maybe there's good things happening in the day-to-day sphere that is encouraging us to be more physically healthy or active, but it's frustrating getting that going. That's one interpretation that you can make with Mars in the sign of Cancer in the 6th. But another, interpretation is definitely just conflict. You're just feeling like things are going so well within your local environment, but something is disgruntled. There is some form of, this Mars mother bear energy that takes on a kind of hard work or a kind of laborious energy that brings conflict, potentially injury. So this is one of those signs where you do have to be careful of personal injury here. But it's like there's something below the surface that seems difficult, even though things are going quite well in the surface. So it's almost like that pot that is boiling in the background that you just don't notice, and it has something to do with the kind of work that you're involved with, potentially with employees or tenants, or even could be with small animals like maybe your dog or your cat. But there's something bubbling below the surface now, even though it seems like in the day-to-day things are going quite well. Could it be with a long-term project that you're just now trying to get going, or could it be with a project that you've been working on for a while that is hit like a stagnant place that you're getting frustrated with? Something sixth housey like that. But that is what I'm seeing for Aquarius risings. Okay, let's go ahead and last but not least, let's go ahead and put Pisces on the ascendant. This is going to put Mars into the 5th house of children, recreation, romance, joy, fun, sports. And we see the stellium of planets now from the Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury coalescing in the sign of Aries that is occupying the house of money, the 2nd house here. So what is going on if you are a Pisces rising? It's very interesting. You've got Saturn has just moved into your 1st house. So seems like there's, for Pisces rising, a mature attitude that is beginning to seep into, your it's like taking yourself a bit more seriously as a person right now, whether that's taking your health seriously, being a little bit more of like sort of waking up and going, I'm mature in this way, and that's a good thing, right? Like we don't always see the ways that we're immature sometimes, the ways that we behave immaturely. This is a good thing because Saturn says, hey, I give you the very intelligent, mature information that allows you to be like this really great person that is well-rounded, balanced, practical, mature, helpful, dedicated. That's a pretty nice energy with Saturn in the 1st in Pisces, I think. But it's like taking yourself more seriously right now, which sometimes is a really, really good thing if it's not overdone, of course. And this makes me wonder about how you have become motivated with new skills that can lead to making money, new investments, just a new energy that is really popping right now in being motivated to gather resources, investments, make money, use money for investments, things like that. Maybe it's even to you've gotten a new job and there's more money coming in, and there's just some blessing in the house of money right now in one way or another that has that very victorious, exalted sun kind of quality. So something good is happening, and it's probably because there's like a maturation maybe of the way that you are taking yourself right now, which I think is a really good thing. And then you got Venus in the third house. So maybe there's something good and fortunate happening with the siblings or sisters, right? At home or with the daily routine that is making you feel things are just, you're surrounding yourself by some kind of nice, beautiful, harmonious energy, or there's like good relationships happening right now. So this makes me wonder, with Mars in the fifth house here, there are a couple of things that come up for me. Could this be a time where, let's say there is something good happening with money? Maybe you're working longer, you've gotten a promotion or something like that. Could this be a time where you don't have as much time with your children, or there's a strained relationship with the children, and the children are, going through a moment where they're having some challenges or difficulties? There's something like that there. Now, it doesn't have to connect. Maybe the thing that is happening with money in the money house isn't connected to the thing that's happening with children. Maybe this is just a time where there's two things happening at the same time. Something good was happening with money, but also there is something happening with the children. Now, Mars is the dispositor of the stellium of planets in the second house, though, so it could be connected very well. But if it's not about children, maybe it's a time where you have to pull back from a creative project that you've been like very immersed in for the sake of maybe keeping a closer eye on finances, working those longer hours, doing something at work, being away from home, or maybe you got a promotion or something like this that is bringing in those resources, maybe is taking some time away from just fun and recreation. I could see something like that. So that is some of the basic things that you could see here for Mars in the fifth house of joy and children. Now, this is, of course, in terms of Mars being in its fall, like we've done for other rising signs, you want to be careful with children. This could be a time where maybe there could be accidents or injuries around children as well. So just keep a closer eye on them, I would say. And we just have to mention that as something that is most likely not going to be what happens, but maybe that doesn't happen because, again, you know that Mars is in that fifth house and it's fall. And so you're just being a little bit extra careful, that could be the case here. All right. So that's what I have if you are a Pisces rising. And that's what I've got for today for all 12 rising sign horoscopes. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Please like and share the video if you like the content. Hit the notification bell and leave a comment in the comment section how you see some of these delineations. You don't have to agree. If you see another way in which you interpret these particular transits running through the houses, I'd love to hear from you. I just tried to paint one picture. This is just one astrologer's view based on some of the symbolism that we get from the houses, but hopefully something landed for you and it just got the wheels turning a little bit. Some of the house topics that are maybe coming through with some of these planets right now. We'll be back again on Friday for another astrology video. I'm toying with the idea of doing a look ahead for the astrology of April. We'll see how that goes. That's a pretty big undertaking, but maybe I can get that done. If not, we will take a look at some of the important astrology that is happening for the weekend. Okay, well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you next time on the channel. Take care, and bye for now.